A warm greeting to all my students. In the second lecture on the art of criticism, in the previous one we have elaborate discussion regarding the art of criticism, the critical method and its limitations. Now in the second part of the art of criticism, from the section the background of English criticism, we will be dealing with the three forms of criticism. Which are these three forms of criticism? As we have been aware that the word criticism itself is loosely applied to three different kinds of literary inquiry, and these three different kinds of literary inquiry don't have anything common in them except that they relate to literature. These three forms of criticism are named as: the first one, legislative criticism; the second one, the aesthetic criticism; and the last one, the descriptive criticism. What is this legislative criticism? Legislative criticism is defined as that form of critical endeavor which lays down rules for the art of writing, largely based on standard works of literature, Greek and Latin. As we have previously even been known to this fact that the Greek and Latin classics, they were considered as milestones as far as criticism is concerned. So here this legislative criticism also deals with these standard works of literature from Greek and Latin field. Now the second one, this we are going to deal in detail with this legislative criticism. So what this legislative criticism is? It assumes or it supposes that the would-be writer has only to be told how to do his work to be able to do it very well, depending upon the milestone classics of Greek and Latin literature. And that's why what it addresses itself to the writer rather than to the reader, whose interests are supposed to be safe in the critic's hands. So this first type of legislative criticism, it is supposed to address to the writer rather than to the reader. The whole of the Elizabethan criticism in England, with the possible exception of Sir Philip Sidney, is of this category, that lies in the legislative criticism, and a large part of that of the 18th century are of this order. Even the part of the criticism of the 18th century also falls under the category the legislative criticism. So Philip Sidney is an exception to this legislative criticism in the Elizabethan age, and despite of this fact, the 18th century criticism is of the category legislative. After that, the second type of significant form of criticism is aesthetic criticism. The word itself speaks much more. Aesthetic criticism, it treats literature as an independent activity of the mind, having an end of its own which may or may not coincide with that of religion or morality or science or politics. So aesthetic criticism treats literature as an independent activity of the mind, that it is unconcerned about the other factors such as religion, morality, science or politics. And hence the function of aesthetic criticism is to probe the nature of the literary art as such and formulates its theories accordingly. So aesthetic criticism is that kind of criticism, that form of criticism that considers the art as an independent activity of the mind. The traces of this aesthetic criticism are found in Philip Sidney in the Elizabethan age, Dryden in the 17th century, and Joseph Addison in the 18th century. So the criticism of these three significant critics falls under the title aesthetic criticism. Now, after these three important critics, this aesthetic type of criticism was fully treated by Coleridge in the early 19th century. After Coleridge, Walter Pater and Oscar Wilde in the Victorian age and I. Richards in our own age, these are the people who have been associated with aesthetic criticism. Lastly, the third important form of criticism has been designed as descriptive criticism. As the name suggests, it is a study of individual works and therefore of writers. It is the study of the aims, the methods and effects of the writers of the particular works. It is the latest of the three critical modes and by far the most popular of all these three forms of literature. Now, as far as the examples of the descriptive criticism are concerned, Ben Jonson's Conversations with Drummond and Dryden's prefaces, they are of the descriptive type of criticism. In Dryden's prefaces, Dryden discusses his own works to defend them from his detractors. That type of criticism also is termed as descriptive criticism. It may draw on the legislative or the aesthetic norms to justify its conclusions, or many times it may follow an independent line of its own. Assured that what it says can always be confirmed from the work under discussion. Much of English criticism is of the descriptive type. After dealing with these important factors, these important things, the three important forms of criticism, now we are going to peep into the beginnings of literary criticism. It is supposed that the art of criticism began in ancient Greece. Even though there is no exact evidence as to when it began confirmed, but it is again considered that in the 5th century BC, the art of criticism got started in the ancient Greece. It seems to have attracted a more positive attention than ever before in the 5th century BC. So, the beginning of the criticism is supposed to take place in ancient Greece, in the European continent, in the 5th century BC. Now, what kind of age this was? This was an age of unprecedented intellectual awakening in Athens, the capital of Greece. Again, now as never before, the scholars and learned men discoursed freely of what concerned them most. So there were discourses regarding religion, philosophy, morality, politics, art and literature. And all these free discourses, discussions by the scholars during this age were at its peak. That is the unprecedented intellectual awakening in Athens. The important literary figures of this age are Achilles, Sophocles, Euripides, Socrates, Aristophanes. All lived in this unprecedented intellectual awakening era of the country Greece in Athens. The most important figure of this literary age is considered Aristophanes. The first to apply his mind to a critical consideration of literature was no one but Aristophanes. Now, the example of his comedy The Frog can be cited to discuss his views regarding criticism. He has forwarded his observations regarding the relative merits of Achilles and Euripides. He again considers the critical questions such as the criteria of merit in poetry and drama. The next criteria, that is the relative importance of craftsmanship and morality in a work of art and choice of language. All these things have been elaborately exchanged with the people. The views over these things have been exchanged by Aristophanes during the discussion of his comedy, The Frogs. Now, his observations gain in effect by being based on the actual practice of these two great dramatists of his age. Which two actual dramatists? Achilles and Euripides, as we have discussed it earlier. Now, what are the things, what are the issues or the problems that he raised? The problems he raised not only engaged the attention of subsequent critics in his own country, but they are of interest even today. And it is considered that with him begins the first regular criticism of the Western world, although the critic has not as yet disengaged himself from the creative artist. So, Aristophanes' criticism with the beginning of the discussion of his comedy, The Frog, it is considered to be the beginning of the art of criticism in the Western world. For Aristophanes was both the one and the other in the same work. The division of labor between the two is a later development. So here the discussion regarding the beginnings of the art of criticism ends. Now in this part second, we have discussed two things. We discussed in detail the forms of criticism, the three forms of criticism, and later on we discussed the beginnings of the art of criticism. And in conclusion, you can say that the beginning of criticism takes us back to Aristophanes in the Greek scene, where it is supposed that Aristophanes, through his discussion of the comedy named The Frog, forwards his views regarding the art of criticism. Thank you, friends. Thank you for your patient listening. Now in the next lecture probably we will be dealing with the first important Greek master, Plato. Thank you one and all.